Hi, my name is Professor Matthew Nichols, and I'm so excited that you clicked on this video. Today we're going to be talking about crash cymbals. Now, crash cymbals are a really beautiful instrument that, when played well, can really complement any ensemble that they're being used in. I also have to mention that crash cymbals are a very complicated instrument, and that a lot of very successful musicians have created their own technique, or they have implemented a technique that they find to be successful. And you may find that my technique today is not the same technique you may have heard of, or it may be a technique different than what an instructor is telling you in your own area. But I like to remember what Mr. Keith Aleo once taught me, which is that cymbal techniques are all these little things that we can put into a bag, and whenever we need them, we can pull each different technique out for a certain circumstance in our playing. So hopefully it's something that can help add to your cymbal technique, that you don't feel as though it's in such conflict that you wouldn't be able to use any of my advice today. So we'll get started by asking the question, what are crash cymbals? And honestly, it's two cymbals that we put together while holding them in our hands. This is different from a suspended cymbal or a drum set crash cymbal that you would strike with a stick. These are two cymbals that are metal on metal contact to create a really beautiful sound. Now, how many types of crash cymbals are there? Too many to count. Many different successful cymbal companies and cymbalsmiths have created instruments that sound good when played together, and so you really just have to pick and choose. Is there a specific company that you want to get your cymbals from? Is there a specific size that you've had success with, or a different manufacturing process that you enjoy? I know here at Florida Atlantic University we have multiple pairs of cymbals of different sizes and different creation strategies that allow us to have multiple options available in any ensemble situation. Today I have a pair of 19-inch Symphonic American crash cymbals made by Zildjian, and these are going to be my demonstration tools today, but these again are not the only instruments that I think are necessary for you to play on. When you go to play a cymbal like this, you're going to have some sort of strap strung through the hole in the center. That can be made with leather or nylon, or it could be a handkerchief if you don't have access to any of the leather straps. And that's going to be our main point of contact. And the cool thing is, if you know how to play snare drum, where you take your thumb and your index finger and you create a plus or a cross on that point of contact, that fulcrum, we can take that same technique and we can utilize that when we play our crash cymbals. So I will start by reaching under the strap to grab the cymbal. I will make a line across the cymbal, and then I'll use my thumb on top to create that plus. And while pinching this tightly, it's going to cause a lot of pain. This is also going to cause a very secure grip. Now, this is an instrument that you need to practice often. You need to practice holding the cymbals often so you can develop calluses on your fingers to help with the fatigue in the future. Now, you may also notice that I have this leather pad on here. This is not necessary. Sometimes certain musicians will want to use a pad to help with the clarity, to allow them to not make as much contact on the cymbal. But it is not a necessary part. All we need is some sort of handle that we can hold the cymbal with and a cymbal to play. So I'm going to, again, bring my hand under, place my thumb on top, and pinch. From here, I should be able to control the cymbal. It's not that it's hanging loosely and I'm not able to hold it up or down. Instead, I'm making a good pinch here right at the base of the strap. And this will also help me make minimal contact with my back fingers. If I make more contact than just my back fingers, I can dull the sound of the cymbal, which will ultimately lower the quality of the crash that I'm going to be performing. Now we're going to want to do this with both hands, and we're going to want to make sure that we're doing this, again, with as tight of a pinch as possible, so that we have total control of the cymbal. I'm on occasion will have a couple of knuckles touching the bell of the cymbal, but the more I play cymbals, the more I realize that I really need to eliminate the excess contact of my hand and my arm to the cymbal in order to produce the best sound. I'm going to put this cymbal down for right now because a lot of what I can demonstrate with cymbals and a lot of the time that I practice cymbals, I actually just use my hands. So the relationship of clapping and playing crash cymbals is actually closer than you think. When we clap, we need to bring them together. We don't slide them across each other to get a crash or to get a clap. Instead, we bring them together to provide a clap. The other thing that we do when we clap is not only do we bring them together, but we're also offsetting them to create that extra little pocket to create the clapping sound. And sometimes we'll pull our hands away. If it's one clap, sometimes we have a tendency to do this. But if I want to clap repeatedly, I'm going to bring my hands away from each other. And you notice the direction they're traveling is directly towards each other and directly away. This is my first approach to crash cymbals, is that when I play my crash cymbals, I want them to go directly towards each other and then directly away from each other. I don't want them to take any extra trips away. I don't want one of them to slide this way while the other one slides this way. I don't want to do anything that goes away from the body or closer to the body. My normal concert crashes happen in front of me, and they come together and then they go apart. Now, the common things that we don't want to have happen when we play crashes is we don't want to have the cymbals hit perfectly parallel. That creates this fizzing sound. I call it a fss sound because it doesn't have as much body and tone, and that's because the air gets trapped on the inside. So in order for us to avoid getting them to hit perfectly parallel, we need to create an angle. So if I have one perfectly parallel and I have one at an angle, that means that there's going to be one side of the cymbal that touches first, and then the other side of the cymbal that will touch second. And that allows for the air to move around a little bit more freely than if I were to just put them perfectly parallel together. Now that's what we call a flam, because just like in snare drumming, a flam is both hands moving towards the drum, but one hitting slightly before the other. And that's that flamming motion that we're going to create. Now, if the flam is too wide, it's going to sound like two separate attacks. Ta-ta. We don't want to have that happen. And also, something that can happen is if we prolong one of the sides on the cymbal and then we cup the other side, it creates a kerplunk sound. So we want to avoid the fizz from parallel by creating a flam or an angle. But when we play, we want to make sure that angle is not so aggressive that it creates two attacks, or we prolong one side to create a kerplunk that traps the air inside. That's it as far as how to get a good crash on any pair of cymbals. But there's more nuance to it that we need to talk about. So now I'm going to pick up the cymbals and demonstrate just a couple of things. Now we can hold the cymbals like we would see in a cymbal monkey toy. We can hold them out in front of us and play like this, but we have a tendency for them to meet parallel. So if I'm going to play with my cymbals upright like this, I want to be very careful that I'm making sure to offset the angle of one of my cymbals. I also reserve playing cymbals upright for soft playing because I don't want to travel too far. And the less we have to travel, the softer we're going to play. So if I'm going to play my soft cymbal crashes, I'm going to play them parallel, slightly offset them so that air doesn't get trapped, and then I'll bring them together and pull them apart. Bring them directly together and pull them apart directly away from each other. No scrapings or anything like that. Now that we've discussed holding them parallel, holding them upright, perpendicular to the ground, when I play louder crashes than a piano or a mezzo piano, I have a tendency to play them in front of me at an angle. This is so that I don't have to my music isn't hiding between the cymbals, but also this is a more relaxed approach for my shoulders. If I hold them any higher, I'm going to have to scrunch my shoulders up. So I hold them out in front of me, and the last tip, or the reason why I hold them here, is because if I need them to stop making noise, I can bring them directly back to my belly or my gut. And that is the number one place for where I'm going to mute the cymbals. If I put them together and crash, I don't want to find somewhere to make them quiet. I don't need someone around me to silence them. Instead, I just bring them to my chest. Now, in order to make sure that I'm not hitting them parallel, I'm going to want to think about having one hand either more parallel to the ground and one hand not parallel to the ground, or I need to be conscious about how much of an angle I allow for them to have. And then once I feel like I have a good angle, I'm going to take whatever cymbal's on top. For me, it's my dominant cymbal. I'm just going to drop it. I'm going to use the weight of the cymbal and gravity, which I have no control over, to control how that cymbal falls. And so when it makes contact with the cymbal under it, as soon as that happens, I'm going to want to make sure that they pull away, either by lifting the top cymbal, but also lowering the bottom cymbal to get it out of the way so that they can ring freely. I'm going to play a couple of crashes for you now. Now you notice that I'm not really pulling them very far away from each other, and I'm not starting with them very far apart. It's because these are heavy cymbals, and I'm not trying to play the loudest that I can. But if I were to play louder, then I would need to pull them farther apart. Sorry about that. My poor microphone is currently tearing up after having to hear how loud those crashes were. So loud crashes are very special, but they also require just a little more effort to bring them farther apart, as well as let the crash have its flam and pull them apart so that after you make contact together, they can ring freely. So outside of holding the cymbals perpendicular to the ground and crashing softly, or turning them to an angle, lowering them so that they're over the belly for quick muffling, and dropping one on top of the other and pulling them apart, that can take care of a lot of your crash cymbal needs. Now, this may be different than what someone has told you, or this may be something that you hear in the future. But as I mentioned, it's good to have multiple techniques that you can approach in the future to figure out, okay, this may be the best sound for this opportunity that I have. I don't want you to discount anything that I've said today, but instead I want you to take it, write it down, and keep it in the back of your mind for the next time you have to play crash cymbals. Now, outside of this 19-inch pair of crash cymbals that I have here today, you could play crash cymbals as small as 14 inches in diameter, 16, 18, 17, 20, or even 22 inches in diameter. Now, the larger cymbals are going to be a lot heavier, but because of how large they are, the tone of the cymbals when played together is going to be even more complex and more full than if we were to use a smaller cymbal, which may be a higher pitch due to its simple size difference. But if you have multiple options, definitely get to know each pair of cymbals that you have so that you can figure out, is this the best sound for when I need to play? Or do I want to look for another sound instead? And if your school only has one pair of cymbals, definitely take advantage of being able to manipulate them in different ways, whether it's playing soft and crisp or playing full and colorful and beautiful. If you were able to do that with just one pair of cymbals, which is possible, you will have a lot more opportunities to create music than simply just saying, I need multiple pairs of cymbals. So whether it's having multiple pairs or one pair, I hope that this information has been helpful for you today. And I hope that you are able to take this and really get to know the crash cymbals a little bit better. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I hope that you have had fun today, and I look forward to your musical journey as you continue to play crash cymbals in any ensemble.